So my next guest has created a platform for addressing the mental health issues of primarily English-speaking men in Switzerland, in the French part of Switzerland. And his movement is called Blokes And Black Dogs. And his goal is to help reduce male suicide and to help guys really take charge of their own mental health and help reduce the stigma that surrounds mental health. And he's doing this by improving awareness of the issues and trying to normalize conversations around this very important topic. Please welcome Carl Wahlers.
This is the Expat Business Hero podcast, and I'm your host, Alex Congdon.
So, hi, Carl. Welcome to the show. Pleasure to have you.
Pleasure to be here, Alex. It's nice to have an opportunity to chat.
Great. Well, listen, Carl, today we're talking about men's mental health issues, and it's such an important topic. And you've decided to dedicate a lot of your time to bring awareness to it. So why have you chosen to do this?
Okay, well, after having been at Nestle for 26 years and 15 of those years in Switzerland, I was unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on which way you see it, was made redundant last year. I wanted to try and find a way to use some of the time I suddenly had on my hands in a constructive way. Men's mental health, and particularly surrounding suicide, was something that had always been sort of at the forefront of my mind. It's a cause that I was interested in, and one that I could certainly see myself working in and around and supporting. I was inspired by a few things, one of them being Andy's Man Club, which is an organisation in the UK which established peer-to-peer support for men as a consequence of somebody committing suicide. This group, Andy's Man Club, the brother-in-law of the founder, Andy, in the title of the group, committed suicide apropos to nothing, or nobody was aware that the guy was suffering. Nobody was aware he had a problem. His brother-in-law, who was a former professional rugby league player, his name's Luke Ambler, set up this group as an opportunity to men to share, to talk, to offload, if you will, some of the stuff that's going on in their lives. And I came across this I think it was August 2016 was when I originally came across it, so almost 2 years ago. And that made me think that this is, clearly a very important subject and something that I would like to be able to support. I think part of that was having had friends who have committed suicide, which I think always gives you a special sense of awareness if you know people who've been touched and who are sufficiently unable to manage life, that they have to take that final fatal decision.
Yeah.
So that really is a big part of the inspiration between the desire of doing something. So, yeah, come the time of being out of work, that was something that I really thought it was worthwhile to focus some time and energy on.
So for those people who are not familiar with it, you've picked a name for your mission, for your project, and you've called it Blokes And Black Dogs. So what does that mean? How did you come up with that?
I think of all the things surrounding this group, this was the thing that took most time and energy. Actually trying to find an appropriate name to call my group. I think I drove people crazy talking about it. I think, what do you think? Or what's your suggestion? What's your idea? But finally, I think it was one of the WHO video about black dogs, which is a marvellous piece of work. And if you get the chance to look it up, WHO produced some really good little short videos, and the one that they produced around the black dog of depression is amazing, and it really sort of helps set a standard for me in terms of communication. But that video portrays what depression can do, how to respond to it, and refers to it as the black dog. I think it was Winston Churchill a long, long time ago, over 100 years ago, who first utilised black dog as a way of describing a depression. And the blokes part, I guess the blokes part is because I want it to be about guys. I want it to be, I want it to try and be real. I want it to try and be authentic, blokes talking to blokes. It was really where that inspiration came from. And as I say, I filled many pages of flip chart looking for a name before I finally settled on this.
That's a great name.
So yeah, I'm really happy with it. Actually, I think it portrays quite nicely what we're trying to do. And, it's a bit blokey. It's I'm a rugby guy. Rugby was my passion for a long time in my life, and somebody recently described me as one of the blokiest blokes that they know. So I suppose, being a rugby guy who likes a pint and likes a curry and loves sport of all types, I guess that's sort of part of where the inspiration comes from. So being the face, as it were, of an organisation called Blokes and Black Dogs seems somehow appropriate. So.
What position did you play?
Well, you can only see my head, Alex, so you can't see my body. But you probably judge, if you saw my body, you judge quite easily that I was a prop forward back in the day. So.
I was fullback and wing, so there you go. So I was far away from you guys in the scrum.
I can tell by your suntan.
Yeah. So, talking about then people that are struggling with mental health issues, and how would you know? How would they know themselves that they've got these issues? What are they going through? Perhaps you can give some examples.
Well, if you think about letting life get on top of you for whatever reason, I think that as men, we bottle things up. We're not always prepared to talk about how we're feeling, about what's troubling us. And that's a massive part of that is societal conditioning. I think, men are perceived to be as strong, silent characters. That's how we would be portrayed. Hollywood has been telling us that for years and years and years, and I guess that paradigm is starting to break a little bit now. But it's when you're feeling that pressure of life giving too much for you, when you wake up and you feel overwhelmed, when you start to suffer from anxiety, and you think about, I've got this meeting at work today. I've got to prepare for it. I haven't had time to prepare properly. How's my boss going to react? How do I feel about it? And just things build and build and build, and that can result in mental health issues, and it can result in depression. You become stuck in a depression. I was reading something yesterday, and it was talking about depression isn't just sadness. It's where you actually become mentally and physically able to function as well as you potentially could. A large amount of depression is chemical imbalance in the brain. I'm not an expert, so anybody who's out there listening to this thinks that I'm talking rubbish, I apologise, but this is just my perception as a layman. I've got no training or qualifications in this area. I just like to stress that. But I think it's that feeling of something sitting on your chest and pressing down on you. How do you get out of bed in the morning? How do you respond to your family? How do you respond to things that you used to enjoy? I think a very clear sign of somebody who's suffering is a person who has really taken a great deal of joy about, playing with their kids, or, going for a walk, going for a hike, playing golf. And then suddenly these things become toil as opposed to pleasure. I think that's one thing that you really see quite often with people who are suffering. And I think that's a really good sign, when you see people who are really resisting being involved in the sort of good stuff that have been an important part of their life.
In fact, that was what I was going to ask you. The next question was for those people who may think that they've got a close, friend or a loved one who's near them, who's suffering. What would they see externally? Because I think internally you're feeling something, but maybe externally it comes across differently. I don't know. I
think externally it's a really difficult thing to understand whether somebody is suffering or not. A broken leg, a broken arm, measles, I don't know, flu. There's usually physical manifestations of those challenges. Whereas something like depression or anxiety, people can be presenting a smiling, happy face in life. They can appear to be functioning perfectly well. Whereas, behind the eyes, there's so much going on. It's almost like the swan analogy. You see a swan calmly gliding across Lachenal. But for those of us who are suffering beneath the water, there's an awful lot of stuff going on to try and make sure that you're functioning in a reasonably coherent way. It's really difficult to know and understand and pick up. I think you're only really going to start to pick it up when you talk to people, and when you talk to people that you know well is obviously something that where you can try and understand and see where they're coming on, see what challenges they're facing. But yeah, I guess that it's a hidden disease. Any mental health, any mental illness is a hidden disease. It's only trying to recognize it in yourself, I guess, is one of the things that's really difficult. So if you can't really recognize it in yourself, your friends aren't always going to be able to recognize it. But silence isn't strength, in my opinion. You know, holding back and showing a courageous face to the outside world is only really going to help make things worse, in my opinion. And I think it's pretty well documented that being out there and able to talk about it and be real and be authentic about, you know, the bad things that are happening in your life are going to take the pressure off. It's a cliche, but a problem shared is a problem halved. And I think that's really what we're about at Blokes and Black Dogs, is trying to give guys a forum to talk where that they can, you know, halve their problem, if you like. So they take the pressure off themselves, they unburden themselves, they unload themselves, and people feel better when we have a meeting and we talk. People feel better at the end of that meeting for having got it off their chests.
I mean, how the effects of not dealing well or struggling with these issues. I mean, how bad can it get for someone? I mean, what kind of issues can they face? Not just themselves, but also for the people around them as well.
I think ultimately, suicide is the final solution that some people see, which is incredibly sad. You know, and if you look statistically, 3 out of 4 suicides in men, which is such a frightening statistic. Suicide is the biggest killer of men under the age of 45 in the UK. Wow. And if you look in other cultures, that's pretty much mirrored. If you know, certainly in Western developed cultures, you know, where we can get statistics for that is mirrored throughout. So that in itself is pretty frightening, and that, you know, is part of my inspiration, trying to put something in place. So yeah, what can we do to try and help? Is to get people to talk, get people to open up, get people to take the pressure off themselves. I mean, you know, I make no apologies if I repeat myself, because I think it's the single most important thing that we can do. The first step towards good self-care is to really unburden yourself in a safe place, and that's what we are trying to provide, is a safe place where there's confidentiality, where people are going to listen, a calm environment, no judgment. I mean, for me, that's so important, that when people come in through the door and sit and talk at one of my meetings, nobody's going to judge them. We've all done stupid things in our lives, and we will all continue to do stupid things in our lives. And, you know, the last thing I want somebody to walk in is to feel that people are going to think bad of me because of some crazy thing that I've done, be it 20 years ago or be it 20 minutes ago. So that's what we're trying to provide, a calm, safe space where men can open up, or just listen as well. I mean, you know, we've had guys come to meetings who barely said a word for 2 or 3 sessions, but they finally found their voice, and they finally found a good way to express themselves. And they feel sufficiently calm in that situation to talk about the stuff that's going on.
You know, I wanted to ask you as well about the people who are surrounding those who've got these issues, a family member, a spouse, partner, a friend, whatever. I suppose they also struggle as well to be able to know what to say or how to help, don't they? I mean, has that come out in some of the conversations that you've had?
I think one of the things that has come out a couple of times, where people have said they talked in a meeting about stuff that they haven't necessarily shared with their families. So in some respects, that's sad, clearly, because they're not feeling sufficiently able to talk with their families, because they feel that they will be demonstrated as weak. They will feel that they'll be perceived as a burden, and also potentially they could be embarrassed. But I don't know. It's better to come and talk to somebody. I guess that's really what the point is that if they don't feel that they can say enough at home because they're worried about how people react. They don't want to appear to be weak in front of their wife or in front of their family, in front of their partner. Then we're there to help try and provide an outlet for that. And it's really difficult. I mean, without wishing to go into too much detail, I've been in and around mental health issues within my family over the years, and it's really quite debilitating. It's very stressful, and it can really affect your quality of life. And affecting your mental health can also have a detrimental effect on your physical health. I mean, I know I went through a period of comfort eating and put on an enormous amount of kilos as a consequence of what was going on in the family unit. And it can have very much a negative effect on your family if you're not addressing it. And one of the first ways, it's almost like first aid. It's preventative as well. But I guess mental health first aid is talking to somebody. And we've had guys come through our meetings who say, I'm okay. I think I'm all right. I don't really feel like I've got a problem, but I'd like to come and talk so it's not going to get to a point where I do have a problem. So it's almost like a prevention being better than cure is the approach of some guys. And I think that's great. And I think that's, really positive and self-aware of them to recognise that, right here, right now, there might not be an issue. But if I don't talk to people about stuff which is impacting upon me, then that might become an issue. So, and I admire that, and I admire all the guys who come to my meetings. To be honest, Alex, I think it's a courageous first step, and it does break the paradigm of manliness that society puts upon us. I mean, when you talk about families, I saw something brilliant this morning, and to paraphrase, I think it's difficult to be able to help others, be it your family or your friends, if you yourself are struggling. You can use the analogy of when the masks drop down on an airplane to give oxygen. Give yourself oxygen first before you start to help others.
That's right.
And I think if you're part of a family, and particularly if you're a man where you're perceived, and I say perceived, please, because I know that this is an old societal perception that the man is the head of the family, and I'm not saying I subscribe to that at all, but I think men often feel like they're leaders in their own home, and they feel like they're responsible as a provider. And I know that's a dated paradigm, but it's unfortunately still very much a real paradigm in many societies. So they absorb the pressure on themselves and take the pressure on themselves.
Did you find when you were you mentioned before that you struggled at some point yourself? You talked about the eating issue and so forth. Did you have a format like this to help you at that time? Did you miss that?
I did, but I was really fortunate insofar as I had such a great set of friends and a community around me who I felt I could talk to. And that's also part of my inspiration to do this, is because I know from a personal experience that talking about the crap that you face in your life, the challenges that you face in your life, that is actually very beneficial. I know how much it helped me. And if there's one guy who comes to a meeting and opens up and talks and feels that he walks away at the end of the meeting in a better mental place than he was when he came in, then I consider that job done. Okay, hopefully we're going to be able to add more and more guys to our portfolio of attendees, for want of a better expression, who are going to walk away feeling better at the end of the meeting. As one of the guys said to me in a WhatsApp message after the meeting, the following day, he said, "The black dog seems a bit more like a puppy today." And I think, that's great. And I really, that's the sort of thing you think, yeah, okay, brilliant. And that one guy feels better. So that one guy is going to be a more positive influence out there as a consequence of having been listened to.
So how much does being, an expat away from home accentuate the feeling of being maybe isolated or unsupported? Because you're working with, English speaking
Yes.
men in Switzerland or in the French part of Switzerland. Obviously, I know you'd like to do more than that, but it's obviously, they don't have their natural, if you like, support networks around them, perhaps that they would have had in their home country.
Yeah, it's exactly that. I mean, when we take on an expat assignment or we move to a different country to work, we're stepping away from our comfort zone. We're stepping away from friends and family that we've known for years and years and years. And, okay, if I was, before I came over here, my biggest social circle was around either the rugby club or the cricket club. And if I was feeling bad about something, and then, I might just go and have a pint with one of the boys and have a chat and feel better as a consequence, or I might go and see my mum or my dad or my brother, my sister, and talk to them. But you just don't have that easy access to a support network that you would have in your home country. Again, I think it's about demonstrating weakness. You don't want to demonstrate weakness. And, if you have a reasonably high-powered job in a big corporate entity and suddenly you go in and you say that you've got issues with depression or anxiety or whatever, I think most companies are sufficiently enlightened now that you would get support. But that doesn't mean that you yourself as an individual feel that you're letting your company down. You're over here on a big expat salary. You're getting housing allowances. Your kids' schools are being paid for. You're an expensive commodity. And you feel a certain degree of responsibility to being able to deliver against the objectives that you are set. And anything that's going to set you back on that, whatever that might be, that's pressure. Your family, it's a horrible. I really hate the expression "trailing spouse." I think it's a really unpleasant expression, but it's often used. And I think that the trailing spouse in an expat family environment is one who often suffers because they're making a big transition. They're going to be doing a lot of the unseen work. You're going to be in the office, whereas your partner is going to be at home with the kids, trying to forge relationships and forge friendships, trying to get a social life going, trying to make sure that the kids have social lives and get activities planned for the kids. All of these things can build up, dealing with doctors, dealing with insurance companies. All these things, I guess, can all build up. And, I think you have to try and develop coping mechanisms for that. And the best coping mechanism, I think, is to be able to talk. But and this is part of expat life. There's many of us who have seen this firsthand. There's many people who will see it firsthand. One of the things that maybe the big corporations need to think about as they bring people in is how they support expats when they arrive. I think from a practical point of view, there's a lot of good stuff that happens out there. But from an emotional point of view, I think there's not a great deal there from my personal experiences, from people I've spoken to, from friends of mine. I think the emotional support behind an expat move from big corporations is something that I think is found wanting currently.
I mean, we touched on this already before, but what kind of support are you finding that works today? And how are you actually running your group sessions that you do today?
It's very simple, really simple. There is no rocket science behind it at all. As I mentioned before, I've got no experience as a therapist or a counsellor or a practitioner of any description. So it really is peer-to-peer support, genuine peer-to-peer support. We arrive at the meeting, which we currently hold them at the Impact Hub in Lausanne, and the support that we get from them is great. Providing a venue, coffee, tea, and so on, which is awesome. But we just sit in the meeting, one of the rooms there. There's usually new guys. I mean, we so far haven't had a meeting where there hasn't been a new fella turn up. So we just describe briefly what we're trying to achieve, a little bit of spiel about the reasons why we're doing it, setting out the ground rules. And the ground rules are, as I mentioned before, it's around confidentiality, listening, encouragement, a safe place, no judgment, all of that good stuff. We just reiterate that every time because I really want people to feel that they can be utterly comfortable in saying anything they want to say. And then we just talk. It's really just try and, how's your week been? What's been going on? Is there anything that's bugging you this week? Has anything gone badly this week? But also we try and bring some positivity into it as well. What's gone well? What are you thankful for? What are the encouraging aspects of this week? So, and that's always want to try and finish on encouraging positive notes. And we get them, we've had some really inspiring stories from some of the guys. And that's amazing and awesome to see that. Yeah. And then we close, and that's it. There isn't rocket science. As I say, it's just an environment for men to be open, an environment for them to be themselves. And, there's no pretense. It's just blokes talking to blokes.
What kind of men are turning up to the meetings in a general sense?
Gosh, we've had guys in their early 20s to guys in their 50s coming from various different backgrounds, various different nationalities. The meeting is in English, but we have had people, we've had some local guys come along. We've had people come along who English isn't their first language. Which is, I suppose it's a bit challenging for them, particularly when I start to talk proper South London. And you got CEOs, you got people who own companies, you got people who are self-employed, you've got people who are out of work. It's really broad. We're blessed in seeing such a great cross section of people, and that always fuels good conversation because everybody has different viewpoints and different understandings.
Yeah.
But nobody's judging each other, and we're just listening to understand rather than listening to reply.
I mean, just by way of a kind of grouping up some of the things you said already, if you were to give some, practical suggestions to someone who feels that they're struggling, or that knows someone else that is, what perhaps could be, 2 or 3 useful suggestions for them to them?
I think one of the first things is actually to find somebody that you can speak to about it. I think if that doesn't help, go and see a doctor, go and see a GP. I think there's such a greater understanding nowadays of mental health issues. I think if you go into a GP, they're not just going to give pills to you. They'll try and find a way to get a talking solution in place. It's to encourage, be empathetic to your fellow man. If you sense somebody is struggling, just be there for them. Again, if there's a friend or family member who gives the appearance that life is becoming a bit hard for them, just be with them. And just, it may sound cliche, just give them a bloody hug and just tell them that you're going to sit with them and be with them through it. It's about presence. I think one of the most important things to do around people's mental health is to be present for them. Yeah, and we can't always try and fix the situation as much as we would like to try and fix the situation. Sometimes there's situations that you can't possibly imagine. And you can't possibly imagine how somebody is still functioning given what's going on in their life. And so you're not going to be able to fix it. But just being there and just listening, just sitting, having a cup of tea, cup of coffee or a beer to provide emotional support. It's the most important thing. Just be there. And as part of that being there is just provide a shoulder to cry on if that's what's needed. Yeah. Be a sounding board if that's what's needed. But it's what they need. It's not what you want to try and add to them. It's trying to be there to be someone or something for them.
Now, launching a project like this, I mean, it's like any other project. It could be a business, it could be this particular project, but you've got challenges on the way here. I mean, what are the things that you're facing today as a challenge as you launch this, how can people out there even help you?
I think one of the single biggest challenges that surrounds mental health is the stigma that surrounds mental health. Okay. And that sort of part of the mission of Blokes and Black Dogs is partially there to provide peer-to-peer support, but also partially to create awareness and to help normalise conversations surrounding mental health. The stigma that attaches mental health, people, it frightens people, and people are scared of it. And people will ignore it. They won't want to talk about it. If you turned up to work with your arm in a sling after a skiing accident or something like that, people are going to chat to it and be sympathetic. But if you turn up at work and you're crying and you're upset and you're not engaging with your colleagues, then people are going to be very wary of you. And that's, again, it's a societal thing. Mental health issues currently continue to hold a stigma, and I want to try and do, in any small way I possibly can, work towards breaking that stigma. So that, for me, that's the biggest single challenge that we face. It's getting people to acknowledge that mental health is an issue and that people do need support. I think communication is another challenge. And by communication, it's letting people know what's going on and getting a walk through the door. I think encouraging a man to actually walk across the threshold of that meeting room, sit down and say, I feel terrible, I want to talk about this. That's a big step. So to encourage, I would do anything I could to encourage guys just to come and talk. And I don't, honestly, I don't care if they don't come and talk to me, and they go and talk to somebody. But but we're trying to provide a platform to make that easier for them. I think society still judges people with mental health issues, whether they're perceived or otherwise, and it's breaking that down. That relates right back to the stigma issue. And we need to be able to find a way to support this. I mean, at the moment, I'm able to do this gratis, fully free. We get great support from the Impact Hub, as I say. We get in the meeting room for nothing, and that's awesome. But sooner or later, if and when we expand, I would like this to expand, and we may need to look at ways that we try and fund this and try and get some sort of financial support and raise some money to put resources in place to get better support. And I think, the things are coming into my head now as I speak, Alex. Another thing that we need to have is proper clinical psychological support behind this as well. We're working in partnership with the Lausanne therapy space, and the team there, I know that they're ready and able to support us if we need at any stage. And so it's brilliant to have them behind us. So I know that I can give them a call if I've got a concern, if there's something, if there's someone I feel needs more than just peer-to-peer support, if they actually need some counselling therapy, then we've got that in place as well. So, but I'm gonna hopefully need more of that in the future. I think there'll be more need for professional support behind us. Yeah. Because as I say, I'm not trying to pretend I'm something I'm not. I just want to be. I'm a normal guy who wants to help other guys, and I've got no training. Something I'd like to in the future. I'd like to change. I'd like to look at counselling qualifications, counselling experience, coaching experience. That's something for the future. But right here, right now, I'm just a layman. So.
Well, you set up this amazing group to start with. I'm sure your ambition is to grow it. I mean,
For sure.
I'm reading between the lines everything you said there. I'm sure there are many other regions in Switzerland and beyond that would like to perhaps take this idea of yours and help it grow it. So congratulations for getting it started. Really, it's quite amazing.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you. I mean, there are a lot of people out there who probably want to reach out to you, either to come and join the group or even to help you. And so if anyone out there thinks that they could help you, Carl, in any way, or perhaps men who feel that they need to talk about these issues to come and join their group, what's the best way for them to reach out to you and find out more information?
Okay, well, the primary communication tool that I use is Facebook, a little bit on Instagram, a little bit on Twitter, but Facebook is the main vehicle. So there's a Blokes and Black Dogs page on Facebook. So it's unique, so you should be able to find it pretty
easily. And I'll put the link in the show notes.
Yeah, thank you very much. Also, I have a website, www.blokesandblackdogs.ch. That's another source of good information and will facilitate an opportunity to send me an email as well. So yeah, they're the two main ways. But you can find me on Twitter, you can find me on Instagram as well. So Blokes and Black Dogs is the handle on both those two sites. So you can Oh, LinkedIn as well. Yeah, I've also got a LinkedIn page. There's Blokes and Black Dogs company page on LinkedIn as well. So,
Brilliant.
So any way you want to try and contact me.
Well, I'll put all those links and information in the show notes of the episode. And again, listen, Carl, I just want to end up by thank you for coming on the show. I really want to recognize, acknowledge what you do. I think it's amazing. It's a really great thing that you're doing on behalf of all the people that you're helping. And thanks so much for coming and talking with us today.
Thanks ever so much, Alex. It's been a real pleasure. And as you probably gather, I can talk about this all day. So, but thanks a lot for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Carl. Thanks a lot. Well, I really enjoyed that episode with Carl Wahlers, and I've put the full episode and the show notes up on my website, alexcongdon.com/21. And I thought it was a really relevant and very important episode to do, not least because there are some parallels with the themes that we explore in the Expat Business Hero, in particular when I talk with entrepreneurs about the need to reach out and ask for help, to get help from mentors and support them on the journey of creating a business. It's very important. But even more importantly, when you're struggling inside yourself and you have issues of depression and other related mental health issues, you also need to reach out and ask for help. And that's why I thought this was a very relevant episode. And I really appreciated Carl coming on the show. So again, the show notes are on alexcongdon.com/21. Thank you.